Good afternoon and welcome to Opinion Journal. I'm Mary Kissel. Well, we're another day into the IRS harassment scandal, and it turns out that it's even worse than we first thought. They weren't only targeting conservative groups, but the folks at the IRS were also leaking confidential information to friendly left-leaning media outlets. Here to comment is Best of the Web columnist James Taranto. James, let's start with ProPublica. For the viewers out there who don't know it, what is ProPublica and how is it linked to this scandal?
Well, ProPublica is a 501c3 tax-exempt nonprofit corporation. We've been talking about 501c4s, like these Tea Party groups. The distinction between a 501c4 and a 501c3 is a 501c3 is not supposed to engage in any political activity. It's basically a charitable organization, and its contributions are tax deductible as well as its operations being tax exempt.
So you have a news organization that's files as a charity.
Right, which is not unusual. There are a lot of magazines that are published by 501c3s. But what's sort of interesting here is ProPublica reported just yesterday that an earlier report of theirs from last year had been based on confidential filings from conservative 501c4 applicants that had been leaked or sent to ProPublica in response to a request for information, even in violation of the law. These were confidential applications that were not supposed to be released to anyone. Now, apparently the IRS contacted ProPublica afterwards and said, oh, gee, please don't use these. We weren't supposed to release them. Oops. But ProPublica deemed 6 of the 9 applications it received newsworthy and actually reproduced them on the website, including for our friend Karl Rove's group, American Crossroads.
Extraordinary. And this isn't the only group that received leaked information from the IRS.
No, but let me just say one thing about this. Okay. Here we have the IRS using a 501c3, an even more privileged type of nonprofit, to disseminate confidential information about 501c4s that are on its political hit list. This is astonishing. This is really scandalous. The other example involves a group called the National Organization for Marriage. This is a 501c4 nonprofit that is opposed to same-sex marriage. The Puffington Post, I believe it was a couple of years ago.
Also known as the Huffington Post.
Yeah, some people call it that. Reproduced its confidential donor list, which it had supplied to the IRS. Now, in this case, there was an intermediary. This was supplied to the Huffington Post, or whatever we want to call it, by a group called the Human Rights Campaign, which is a pro-same-sex marriage organization. Now, when you think about this, probably what happened here was, there was a lot of pressure to on groups that are against same-sex marriage. What happened was the Human Rights Campaign got sort of puffed up with its own moral authority. They thought they were doing a good thing by exposing the donors to the National Organization for Marriage. Probably they had a sympathetic guy at the IRS who thought so too. It's and whatever you think of same-sex marriage, this sense of moral authority led them to do things that were illegal and wrong.
And very scary. I know our colleague Kim Strassel last year chronicled the trials and tribulations of Frank Vandersloot, I hope I pronounced that correctly, who was a big donor to Mitt Romney, and he was targeted by the IRS when it was revealed that he was one of the biggest donors to that campaign.
Yeah, he actually didn't donate to Romney because you can only donate $5,000 to a campaign. He donated to organizations that were supporting Romney's candidacy. The Obama campaign called him out by name in an email to its supporters and said that he had a shady reputation, whereupon he was audited for 2 years of his tax returns by the IRS. His business was audited by the Labor Department, and he has since been audited a third time, or been notified of an audit for a third year at the IRS. And we don't have absolute proof that this, that one caused the other, but President Obama, 4 years ago yesterday at a commencement speech, made a joke about sending the administrators of the Arizona State University, where he was speaking, in for tax audits because they had denied him an honorary degree. It's a joke that doesn't seem quite so funny now when we see these pervasive abuses of the IRS in his administration.
Well, I think that's even understating it, James. It almost seems sinister.
Well, and the tone is set from the top. That's the important thing to realize here. Even if Obama didn't expressly direct the IRS to do this, he created an atmosphere in which this was expected.
Indeed. James Taranto, Best of the Web columnist.